From everything, everywhere, all at once.
To, I guess we'll find out on this week's Oscar special episode of The Film Angle.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Kris. How you doing?
Very, very good. Really excited to talk about the Best Picture nominees with you today. We are going to rank them. There are 10 nominees in total, and we are going to basically take turns and see where we put the films in our order. It's a very hard year in terms that we were kind of spoiled for really good films in 2023, and I think the Academy kind of got it right with the Best Picture list for once. Kind of a different way of doing it. Some films that classically would not have been on this list. So yeah, really excited to talk about that with you today.
I agree. I always enjoy doing these episodes. This is our third one now, and kind of reminds me because our second ever episode was our first ever Oscar special.
Oh, we started hard, didn't we?
We did. Don't go back and listen to that one. But yeah, and then last year we ranked the Best Picture nominees, and I think that got a lot of good feedback on that episode. So here we are doing it again, and we always like to preface it by saying we don't really care that much about the Oscars.
Yeah, did you always feel that way? Like, I feel like when I was a teenager, I was like, I'm staying up, I'm watching this, I love this, and the cynicism just comes of age, I think.
Yeah, probably. I don't think I was ever like majorly invested. But I always follow it. I'm always probably more invested than I let on, but like I'm not going to sit up and watch it. I think you used to watch it though, didn't you?
Yeah, I used to stay up really late and suffer in school the next day for it when I was back in school. But yeah, I think now I don't even watch the whole thing now. I watch the highlights, and if something monumental happens, usually does, something weird happens every year, I watch that on YouTube to death. And yeah, I just enjoy the discourse that people are talking about films. I enjoy seeing how the Academy slightly gets better every year at representation and covering more wider bases of films. I still think there's a long way to go. But it's fun to kind of watch that. It's a social experiment in a way for me.
Yeah. Talking of special episodes, Kris, we I feel like we've had quite a couple of weeks. Or it probably was one big week, but it feels like a couple of weeks. But we obviously last episode had our first guest with Alfie Hunter Martin, who came on to talk about Cat Person.
He was fantastic, wasn't he?
It was brilliant, and I also another episode where we have gotten a lot of good feedback for, and I'm really happy with how that episode turned out, and I'm really happy with how we integrated a person into the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I think that worked.
He was like the third member of the Film Angle to me.
Absolutely. I think it worked. I think it worked pretty well. Kind of winging it as we do.
We're doing it again tonight.
We're doing it again tonight. But also, we did our first, and you might not know this unless you've kind of been following our social media. But we did our first kind of collaboration, or we went and joined the Cineboys to Cinemen podcast. Our good friends Danny and Ben, their film cinema related podcast, and we joined them for like an absolute monster of an episode.
A monster.
It
is longer than Dune Part 2.
It is. We always go on about 3-hour films, and here we are like, please go listen to the 3-hour podcast we just made. But honestly, it is a really good episode, and we all brought in kind of like films we would die on a hill for. So some really good kind of discussion over some films that some people might hate, but we would die on a hill for. We talked about the cinematic landscape as a whole, which was really enjoyable, and all the kind of things that are affecting it right now, and the kind of hopes and fears for the future, and then ended on a very good kind of listener supported, underrated, overrated on certain films that were given to us.
Yeah, I was pretty jam-packed topic-wise, so yeah, I really enjoyed being a guest on that episode. So it was a real week of firsts. We had a guest for the first time, and we were guests for the first time.
Yes,
so it was a whirlwind, but yeah, absolutely. want to do more of that in the future.
Yeah, I
Keep having
loved
people
it.
on. Yeah.
I loved it. So thank you to Danny and Ben.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We'll definitely get them on this podcast soon, and get them talking about something coming up. We're not sure what yet, but we'll get it in the diary.
But I will cap them at an hour and a half.
I don't know. I listened to the episode and I was like, I don't know where I'd make the cuts.
Exactly. Well, that's good.
All of it was ideal content, as they call it on the internet.
Fantastic.
Go check that out. We'll leave a link to it in the show notes as well, so everybody can go find that. But yeah, shall we rank the 96th Academy Award Best Picture nominees?
And we're going to talk about prefacing earlier, Alex. I'm going to preface this by saying this is not the list that I think is completely concrete. Anybody out there that disagrees with me, absolutely welcome to. I think this list is really strong, and like you could really swap these around at whatever order and make a case for any of these films, bar one maybe, bar one.
Yeah. It's one of those lists where it's actually quite a nice list in terms of everything is pretty decent. And I think definitely the top 5 almost interchangeable.
Yes,
in a way.
I agree.
But again, we don't know what each other has got on their list, so shall we just get into it?
Okay, I'll kick it off first, Alex. My number 10, or my least favorite of the Best Picture nominees, is Bradley Cooper's Maestro. A film, I'm going to say this, there's a lot of hate for it out there, particularly the performance and perhaps the vanity in the performance of Cooper himself and his bid for an Oscar win. I like the movie more than that. I think there are strong moments within this thing. There are moments where it really sings. I think how the film opens is very strong. It has this very, it is a biopic in the classic sense, but there is a lot of style and flourish. And Bradley Cooper does know how to film actors and get the most out of performances. It is true what everybody else is saying, though, that there is a vanity in that performance where he is trying so hard to nail the Leonard Bernstein performance of what that character or that person sounded like and looked like, which is very distinct. And I guess technically he nails it, but that's about as far as it goes. It's technical. It's a very technical movie in terms of acting, and it feels like it the whole way. The whole thing just feels a little bit phony.
Yes, I agree with you fully, and that is why Maestro is my number 10 as well. I also feel bad to jump on the Bradley Cooper hate wagon. I don't think he's done really anything to deserve it. He's kind of put his heart into this film, and the end result is not something I particularly enjoyed or connected with. But there's a lot in there to like. I like how he kind of played around with different styles depending on the decades. His performance is good. It does feel at times maybe like a bit of an impersonation, but he's really going for it. I did find the excessive smoking to be quite distracting at times.
Yeah. I don't think there's a scene where he isn't smoking.
It's quite, and it's really noticeable, and I don't know why. And I assume it's part of the time period, but there are just some things that don't translate so well. And I was just like, dude, put the cigarette down every bloody scene. And I just don't think the through line, the through line emotional kind of connective plot of it being about his wife. I don't know if that worked for me. I do think Carey Mulligan is the strongest performance in this film. I think she's absolutely incredible in it, but I just don't think the film is structured in a way that fully supports a kind of emotive storyline throughout. And it's almost too obvious that Bradley Cooper's good at directing actors, because it's felt like a film about performances. Nearly every scene ended on somebody kind of monologuing, saying some kind of profound thing, and then it would cut to the next scene, which was unrelated again. Maybe over researched. Maybe there was too much like, oh, I want to make sure that like everything I've read about Lenny is in here, kind of thing. I want people to know that I've done my homework.
But I am the biggest fan.
Yeah. Maybe there was an element of that, but unfortunately, Maestro is my least favorite on here.
And I agree with you that Carey Mulligan is like never bad in a film. She usually elevates anything that she's in, but it did feel like there's a lot of bouts between these two on screen as they are a married couple, kind of going through a lot of a lot of follies within his personality. And whenever they are kind of going at each other on the screen at any time, it does feel like they're both in a different film. It feels like Cooper is in a vacuum doing his thing, and that Mulligan is just the soundboard for him. So it does feel like that. So even that's how her performance actually, while really good, came across as kind of one of her least memorable for me, purely because of him. But I do feel like the last third of the film, where the story kind of progresses into her dealings with cancer, I think she that's probably the most powerful part of the film, more than anything that Bernstein is dealing with, is how she just accurately portrays that and is so sympathetic. It is just, it feels like a project where Bradley Cooper knows what a good film looks like, but the aesthetic is there, but the thematic motivation is just not there. Like, why are we having a certain shot framed this way, where they're sitting at a table and it's distance and it looks like The Godfather? Great, it looks like The Godfather, but why does it look like that? Carey Mulligan screaming underwater in a swimming pool, it's been done a lot of times. There's so many things that just get under your skin, but not a completely unpleasant experience. I think there are moments where it really sings, and but yeah, I would have swapped this out with probably another film.
Yeah. Would you say that on this list, this is the one that is the most kind of Oscar baity?
Absolutely. It's the most classic Oscar Best Picture nominee on this list. I really think that even though I think people would tend to agree unanimously that this is the weakest film on the list, I still think that if another film came along and was to replace another Best Picture nominee, I don't think it would be Maestro first, because this is an Academy classic favorite. And that's why it's on this list.
Yeah. Interesting. It is nice that the others aren't as kind of classic Oscar films.
Some are completely opposite. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. No, it's a good list. It's a good list. As we go on, we will be obviously liking these films more and more. And we haven't. I think Maestro might have been the only one we haven't spoken about on the podcast so far. So maybe our thoughts might not go as in depth as we have with Maestro here, but
I think it was the only one we didn't talk about at release. So that's probably why.
I think it's because we I watched it over the Christmas period when we had a little bit of a break, and then when we came back, it wasn't really anything. It wasn't really a film that either of us had much to say about, I think.
Yep. we've done it here, and I still have nothing more to say about it other than it's okay. It's not as bad as people say. You might like it. I think Lauren hasn't watched it yet, and I feel like it's something she might enjoy. So I have recommended it to. You can recommend it to the right person who might be really
be like, I won't be in the room.
Yeah, but I won't be in the room. I'm going out shopping. You go watch this for 2.5 hours. Yeah. So that moves on to number 9.
Yeah.
I feel like this is going to be the same for you and me again, Alex. Number 9 for me is American Fiction.
Yep.
A film, again, I enjoy this much more than Maestro. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. I'll just kind of summarize really quickly. I think that you come for the sort of sharp satire, which is really kind of funny. That's the thing. This film has a lot of problems, but how funny it is gets you through the film. Like, I was laughing quite a lot during this thing. And the thing that ultimately works about American Fiction is the family drama. But the problem is with that is that the film wants to be both. And it excels when it's doing what it's doing, but whenever it sacrifices a plot line for another plot line. The film feels a little bit more, its focuses shift constantly. So that's probably my reservation with it. I still had a good time with it. I think you're the same.
I'm the same. I think I'm maybe a little less excited about it than yourself. But yeah, it's my number 9 as well. Though I do feel like this is going to be the only two where our list maybe
I
align.
think so too. Yeah,
I think everything else is going to be a good mix. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Yeah, for me, American Fiction was like two films that didn't completely mesh together. Both good films in their own right, and you're absolutely correct. A very very funny film, which really is kind of greatest strength. Along with Jeffrey Wright, who is brilliant as Monk. But yeah, it just didn't come together in the end for me, and it just left me wanting a little bit more from it. For a lot of it, I was in it, but yeah, it just didn't hold me at the end, and kind of left me feeling a bit like, "Urgh."
I think there was an expectation as well, because the reviews have been staggeringly great for this film before we went to see it.
It's had a
So
very good festival run, hasn't it?
it did. I just think it did really well wherever it played. So that's a fault on myself, possibly, that I had an expectation that this was going to do something groundbreaking, and it does. It is different. It is a singular film that isn't quite like a lot of things that I've seen in this genre. But I wasn't as blown away or emotionally caught up in it as I expected to. I know a lot of people have really connected with the Sterling K. Brown performance, who has an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. I like that performance, but again, I don't feel like the film gave me enough to really emotionally latch on to that character like it has for a lot of people. So I think that's the ultimate feeling at the end. You're like, I've enjoyed this. This is really funny. It's kind of given me something to ponder on, but that's about it. It kind of faded from memory as soon as I left the cinema screen.
Yeah.
Okay. No, this is where, right, I'm going to say now, every film onwards, I like a lot. I do like a lot. So this is very hard. And I might upset a few people here. But my number 8 is Oppenheimer. A film I really liked, but in terms of the Barbenheimer War, Barbie did come on top of this battle just slightly. Oppenheimer for me was a real sensory experience. It really blew me away in terms of, and also Cillian Murphy's performance, restrained performance, should I say? And talking about performances, Robert Downey Jr. I just think is spellbinding in the latter part of the film, and I think he might be on his way to an Oscar as well. But the thing is, with Nolan films as of late, whilst I am a massive fan, and I think I was a really big fan of Dunkirk and Interstellar recently, but I do feel the fussiness in Oppenheimer a little bit in terms of its obsession with, the constant obsession that Nolan has with time and playing around with the narrative. Sometimes felt a little bit jumbled to me and didn't really sing through. Again, it's emotion for me. I was lacking a little bit of it by the end of the film. That I was kind of, the film was building me up towards. I found it really intellectually stimulating, and in terms of big actions or open set pieces, the atomic bomb scene is breathtaking in terms of its technicality and how Nolan utilizes the lack of CG to create something really epic and scary at the same time is really impressive. But it's kind of a film that has faded from my memory a little bit. Perhaps I need to revisit it again. Maybe caught up in the whole sort of epidemic of how the fascination around these two titans of cinema of last summer were fighting it out, and perhaps that kind of overwhelmed my experience. I look forward to watching it again at home. But yeah, for me right now, it's number 8.
Okay, that's interesting because we are about to fight. The Barbenheimer rivalry comes to a head once more.
All right, okay.
My number 8 is Barbie.
Oh
yes,
look, there's only slightly.
Yeah, Barbie for me is a film I really enjoyed. It is the best version, I think, of what Mattel could probably make out of a Barbie film.
And from the signs of it, what they're going to make afterwards is not going to be as good.
Yeah, Greta Gerwig has clearly poured, every inch of talent she has into this to make it something that isn't just some kind of corporate Hollywood, cash grab. Even though it is the biggest film of last year, but I think it almost did it sincerely,
Yes, absolutely.
Is that the right words?
Yeah, with sincerity. Yeah,
with sincerity. Yes.
Yeah.
I think she put a lot of love, a lot of creativity into it. It's a really funny film. I think it's a really colorful film. I like how unapologetically kind of feminine it is. Everything. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of good stuff going for it. Is it an Oscar-worthy film? I'm not so sure. I think for me, I still see some of the kind of corporate hands on it, but I do like it. It is a very good commercial for a toy, and this is from
That's not fair. I do feel like this was written by the person who wrote Lady Bird. I do feel that touch throughout the whole film in its writing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I honestly don't think anybody could have made this film apart from Greta Gerwig. Like, you hear about some of the versions they almost went ahead with. I don't think any of them would have created a cultural phenomenon like Barbie was last year. And do you know what? It deserves to be on the list. I don't think it'll win Best Picture. I'm sure a lot of people want it to, but I don't think it's that good to be able to do that. But it's nice that it's being kind of celebrated for what it was, which is, this massive kind of go to the cinema film that brought people together. It's great. That's great. Yeah. So I am definitely a fan. I did prefer Oppenheimer, but I am definitely a big fan of Barbie.
Okay, so that's your number 8. So my number 7, I told you it was only very slight. It is Barbie. But okay, I guess what I like to see, why I like to see a film like this on the list. I know you said it's not classically what you would regard as a Best Picture nominee, but this is kind of what I want to start seeing the Academy start to roll on to do, as we are starting to accept more like international films on these lists in the ballots, and the more experimental animations coming into and documentaries. Well, why not look at sort of underappreciated genres? I think genres have been very put aside in previous Oscars. Horror, comedy, drama has always been, those sort of genres have always been at the back front, and we've always been spectacle first with the Oscars. What is the most overtly emotional? What is the most sort of sit down, strip yourself down, and you're watching a serious movie? That's what the Oscars is usually about. So it's really cool to have something like Barbie that completely juxtaposes that. Yes, it's completely commercial, but you're right, the sincerity is there. It comes through. It is hilarious. It is visually stunning and inventive all of the time throughout the film. I have reservations about certain parts of the film that people think it's its strength. Sometimes I feel like that's actually the film's weakness. But overall, it is just a movie that it didn't come out of nowhere, because I knew Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach were not going to be doing something that was going to be, casually, appealing. It was always going to be interesting for them to be attached to the project. So I always had big hopes for it, and I'm so glad that it kind of delivered on that front. It's not my favorite Greta Gerwig film. It's probably my least favorite Greta Gerwig film, but that just tells you how great her films are. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Barbie, and it left give me a bit of a skip in my step whenever I left the cinema.
I think the best thing about it is the fact that it has solidified Greta Gerwig as like one of those directors that you need to go see now. Yeah, like I feel like before that she was very much like an indie darling, and now it's I think I think her next film is Narnia. Blech, boring
for Netflix, right?
For Netflix, so double boring. But I think anybody who sees her name attached to anything will now go and see it. I wish she was doing something more original, but I'm gonna go see Greta Gerwig's Narnia, of course.
At home.
Hopefully not.
I'm going to go to my living room and watch it. Yeah.
Hopefully not. Hopefully they give the big screen treatment, because she deserves it. Jesus, of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. And I think she's kind of perfect for, of course, I agree with you. Would much rather see her do something more original, but I think she's kind of a good fit for Narnia.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll see. Alex, you're number 7.
My number 7 is, and you're not going to like me for this, Chris. It's The Holdovers.
Oh, yeah, we were going to fight.
I really, and again, this shows you how good this list is. I really, really, really like The Holdovers. I thought it was a really kind of emotionally cathartic experience. The performance is great, writing's really funny. The only thing that kind of makes me set it apart from the other films above is just some of the kind of more cliched nature of it, the predictability of it. And don't get me wrong, it's really, really well done with whatever it's doing, despite the fact that it does have some more cliched moments. They are really well done. It's not a slight against the film. But in terms of like more interesting cinematic experiences, yeah, 6-1 trumps The Holdovers for me.
Okay.
But I did really like it. I feel like we're going to be doing this a lot this episode.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a praise fest. I agree with you. I think that one of the first things, because I saw it before you, and I think one of the first things I said to you was, like, this is a film that has cliches all over it. But sometimes I feel like a movie like this is so earnest and so well written and so well done with those cliches that they're cliches for a reason that have existed in Hollywood. This has a real classic Hollywood sensibility to it. I think this is kind of the first holiday film, and well, it's coming up on my list. So should I pause it for now?
Yeah. Get to
Okay.
The Holdovers in a minute.
I agree with your reservations, though.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm intrigued to see where it lands on your list because I know how much you love the film. So I did feel bad putting it so low.
Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. I've got the gloves on. I was ready for a fight, and you've wimped out.
Well, I know. Go for your number 6. Unless it is The Holdovers.
No, this is where it got really, really tricky for me now because I feel guilty, for this because I love this film. Anatomy of a Fall, which I would think a lot of people would probably even put as their number 1. A lot of people love this movie, and I do as well. Mainly for Sandra Hüller's incredible performance. I think along with Emma Stone, I think they're both tied for the best performances of last year, not just the female categories, but just in general and acting as an art. I think she really toes a line between ambiguity and uncertainty. You're just going through this whole story of this woman who is suspected of murdering her husband in their chalet up in the Alps, and the only witnesses around, or not really witnesses, are their blind son and their dog. And we as an audience don't even know this whole journey, if she did it or not. So we are going through, we are judge and jury as well as the physical jury that's in this film, and we get to follow this pretty intense journey of this woman trying to navigate trying to prove her innocence. And Hüller's so good at giving the audience little bits, but never enough to fully condemn nor justify her. So it's a fascinating film, a classic Hollywood sensibilities with a contemporary sort of European twist on it. I think it's really impressive. So it was hard to put it like here. I know I felt really bad.
That's all right. You're in good company. I also had it as my number 6.
Okay.
I really, really like the film. I feel like I had like a few criticisms coming out of the cinema for this one. But I've almost softened on them a little bit over time, the more I listen to people talk about it. And obviously we've spoken about it at length on our main episode and in our top 10s as well, because I think it hit both our top 10s. Yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting film, and I love the discussion it's brought about. I love that it doesn't fully reveal, the whodunit of it all, and you really have to kind of piece that together. And it's so complex in the way that just the way you have discussions with people and how they think it might have played out with different points of view and how people feel about it all. And I think it's a really, really interesting film, an absolutely solid piece of drama, I
Yes.
guess. And yeah, a really good court drama as well.
Yes.
It's
Yeah, the French court system is very different to our own, and
yeah.
very, very fascinating in that point of view, where you're like, is this fantasy? Is this actually how they operate? This is amazing.
But yeah, that whole idea of kind of like tabloid spectacle and how it
Hmm.
how it seeps into your own life, and
People wanting to see the worst in people, because that
yeah.
is the most sort of reaffirming and maybe even fun thing to kind of get out of experience. Be distanced from something and condemn somebody is like the easy thing to do. So it really questions that too.
Yeah, it does play on that idea of like people seeing a snapshot of your relationship
Hmm.
and judging you on those terms, uh, and never fully knowing the emotional scope that comes with a fully formed relationship like that. Yeah, kind of rambling now, I think,
No,
but
I agree. I agree. I think even to a lesser degree, we are all guilty of doing that in our own lives on a
mm,
day-to-day basis, with people, that we don't know, people we see on the street, even people in our own lives. So yeah, it's relatable. Yeah, I'm not gonna do what she suspected of doing. I
no,
don't. That's not in me. Okay, that's not. I'm just letting everybody know it's not in me. But I'm a nice person. But yeah, it definitely brings interesting questions to the forefront that you can kind of take little pieces away from.
yeah, definitely, and a great dog performance.
Oh yeah, that dog is cute.
Yeah, a great dog performance.
Oh.
Apparently, the owner said they're slightly worried that he's going to get typecast a little bit because apparently all the offers have come through. They just want him to play dead a lot.
Oh no.
He's very good at playing dead, though, isn't
He
he?
is. He's
He
very
is.
good at ODing. Yeah.
Play to the strength. Cash in while you can.
It's like
Buy him a
Bart
new doghouse.
Bart the Bear. Do you remember Bart the Bear in the 90s?
I do not.
Oh, he was this a trained bear, grizzly bear that could do anything on camera. And he did a film called The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin in the late 90s, where he was the bear that chased after them. And it actually just looks like there's no CG. This is just a bear going after Anthony Hopkins. And it's some of the best animal acting you'll ever see. And the first credit that comes at the end of the film is thanks to Bart the Bear. No Anthony Hopkins or anything. It's Bart the Bear is the star of this film. So yeah, again, yeah, I hope Snoop, or I don't know what his real name is, I hope the dog doesn't get typecast too. Put him in the next Lego movie.
Yeah. Make him a Spider-Man variant in
Spider-Man
Beyond the
variant.
Spider-Verse.
Number 5 for me, Alex, is The Zone of Interest, a film that wasn't in the top 10 list last year because we hadn't seen it yet, and much like another film that's coming up on the list. But yeah, this film is harrowing. I think everybody who has sort of emotionally responded to it. I hear nothing but great things, and I think it's all deserved. I think Jonathan Glazer is such a fascinating filmmaker who we do not get enough films from. And whenever he does come around to make a film for us, it's always fascinating and brings a different point of view to something that we've seen many times before. And I think this is no different. This is the Holocaust movie really about the sight and sound and it's an overused term. Everybody's used it in all of their reviews, but I'm going to steal it anyway. It's about how evil can be benign and how we can go through life normalizing atrocities that we commit if we are so subjected to the propaganda machine of what the Nazis were going through. It's a fascinating portrait of a family or the commandant family of Auschwitz, seeing their day-to-day lives and how they normalize their environment of operating this death machine that was Auschwitz. So yeah, it's not easy stuff. It is not easy stuff by any means. But what really sets this apart is Glazer's sort of voyeuristic surveillance style of shooting the film, where we really feel like flies on the wall and get a real authentic look of what that experience would have been like. It's because it's almost impossible to even comprehend. And also the sound of this film. Everybody talks about the sound because the sound is amazing. I think it's the best sound of a film I've heard in recent memory. It is so harrowing. This sort of constant hum, this bass that goes through the film that makes you feel like these people are sitting above this, operating this mechanical factory machine, and everything underneath it is just rotting and decaying, and it's just this horrible the ivory tower that we are placed in for this film. So it is just incredible. It's incredible. And it was really hard again to put this number 5. Yeah, I cringe now. It's a really impressive film, and I don't really have much bad to say about it.
I also have a World War II film at my number 5, but this one is Oppenheimer, not the Zone of Interest. So the Zone of Interest comes up a little higher for me, okay. I guess.
I'll leave your thoughts.
So I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, we've kind of covered the Barbenheimer bit a little bit, but I do think this is Christopher Nolan maybe slightly toning it down a little bit after Tenet, but in a really good way. I think he's made a really kind of mature biopic in a way that really gets under the skin of Oppenheimer himself and the creation of the bomb. There's so much going on here that I love. I do think he tinkers with time still a little too much for my liking. If you try to fully explain why some scenes are in color and why some scenes are in black and white, the different interpretations don't fully make sense the whole way through. So there's a lot going on there.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah,
but yeah, no, I kind of love what he's got going on here. I also think he's written a really good screenplay in first person, which is very new and probably only something Christopher Nolan can do and get away with. But I think it's really interesting. It shows his commitment to truly getting underneath the skin of this guy and really trying to understand how he thinks, what he was thinking, and how he feels and how he must feel about kind of unleashing this kind of terrifying power onto the world. And it's all swept up in a really beautiful score by Ludwig Göransson. It doesn't really stop once it starts going, and it kind of threads the film together in this very kind of dreamlike way. And I think thematically it's just absolutely stunning. I think I really like the way this film plays out. I think it's one of those films, when you listen to other people talk about it, and if they love it, you're like, yeah, I agree. And when they hate it and you're trying to figure out your own mind and you're like, no, I fully disagree with why you don't like this film. And it makes you like it even more because you're like, yeah. So yeah, no, I love Oppenheimer. I think it is going to win Best Film. I think that's pretty much a given at this point.
I agree with you. I think so. I think it'll sweep.
It's going to sweep pretty heavily, I think. Yes, it's number 5 on my list, but I'm not mad that it'll win. I'm not mad at all. Obviously, clearly, I think there are 4 more films on the list that are more deserving. But I'm not going to be mad that Nolan's going to sweep up the awards. I don't think it's a bad film to give it to at all. It's not The Green Book, is it?
No, that was a little bit more upsetting.
But yeah, go for your number 4, Chris.
My number 4 is Yorgos Lanthimos's epic, you would say, Poor Things. This is his biggest movie to date, a filmmaker I've always been a fan of. You and I went to see The Favourite together a few years ago. But yeah, I'm especially a big fan of The Lobster, Killing of a Sacred Deer. I think all of his films are just consistent. He's kind of like Wes Anderson. He's somebody who has like a very specific style that he brings to film. He does that thing where the characters kind of speak in a stilted dialogue very intentionally and kind of throws the audience off kilter. This film is kind of a counterpart or sort of a coalition with Barbie in a way, where it follows the exploration of a young woman who's been reanimated from the dead by her sort of Frankenstein surrogate father, played by Willem Dafoe, and she is taken on a journey with Mark Ruffalo's character, who they navigate this sort of fantastical alternate version of our own world as she kind of grows up over the course of weeks, and discovers the world of manipulative men, navigates trust or intellectual thoughts that didn't exist before, and just experiences the world authentically, and comes out the other side very interesting. I won't spoil it for anybody because it's so, you have to see this film. Very hard to not put this even near. It was my number one actually for a while until I kind of thought about the list a little bit further. But on a more basic level, I just think the aesthetic ingenuity and appeal of this film is so, it is just breathtaking to look at this film. And then you marry that with Emma Stone giving an incredible, I think her career best performance, never mind her winning the Oscar for La La Land. I just think she's insanely good in this, throws herself into this character, is so intensely, fiercely, like a brave performance, not in terms of, like, oh, aren't they brave for doing that? It's just like what she's doing on camera is so daring, by any standards in any film. So really like her. Mark Ruffalo, probably my favorite performance of the last year, just absolutely stealing every scene is in doing this awful British accent, playing a complete British fop. He wears a corset when he sleeps with women in bed, and is completely turns to a puddle over this girl Bella, that he originally thought he had the upper hand on. So yeah, this movie is so fun and hilarious, emotionally catches up with you unexpectedly as well, but it is just a complete like chocolate box of a film.
I agree, and that's why we have not come to it yet on my list. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. And Kris, you did mention, like, if you haven't seen it yet, you'll be able to see it on Disney Plus, of all places.
Take your kids.
But I think by the end of this week, I think it's on Disney Plus either Thursday or Friday this week in the UK.
Kids, we're doing an Elemental / Poor Things double bill.
Yeah. That is an interesting film for Disney Plus to have on there. I'd hate to be the kid that's searching for Cruella and accidentally clicks on this, right?
Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, because you could, because I've seen the alternate, like the streaming poster for Poor Things, where like Emma Stone has her makeup like smudged around her face. Like, if I was a kid, I might think that's Cruella de Vil.
Yeah, parents, make sure your parental safety things are on before this film drops on Disney Plus. I'm really looking forward to rewatching it though. My number 4 is The Zone of Interest. So another film that I think has really grown on me, and I think it is the most interesting film out of the 10 on the list. I guess because it's classically more art house and more kind of experimental than the others. But I think it's really interesting in the way that it's kind of putting a really kind of different perspective onto a Holocaust film. One that hasn't been done before. One that is kind of selling this idea of like, yes, we all know how evil, the Holocaust was, but like the people involved with it cared so little, and that is what is terrifying. This was just so everyday to them, and it also is bringing about this idea of like, we as humans have the capability for evil, and that is a horrible thought as well. You see yourself within the Nazi family on here, because they are just going about everyday things. What am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? What's been going on at work today?
Tending to the elaborate garden. Yeah.
Tending to the elaborate garden. What happens when a promotion comes up and you might have to move elsewhere? Like, all these kind of things, which are just so kind of boring, everyday family issues. And it just kind of brings in this kind of banality of evil theme. Just as well as being kind of like incredibly well shot, insane sound design, which is just absolutely terrifying. Which, because you only hear the atrocities happening in Auschwitz. Apparently, all the sound was actually recorded on like nights out
Wow.
so like very interesting. Didn't use any kind of archival sound. They kind of used that like manipulated sound in
just
a way.
Use the outtakes from Under the Skin.
Yeah. For like, I think they went around like Warsaw or something, and just recorded different things going on, which again is really interesting. I'm not an expert, so maybe that isn't what happened, but I'm pretty sure
Sounds like something
heard,
Glazer would do.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's just a really kind of uniquely haunting film, and that kind of droning sound that spikes the different acts within the film is kind of lingers in my brain quite a lot.
What about that closing track over the final credits, where it's almost like these female vocals that are almost wailing in pain. It stays with. It's hard to not get out of your seat at the end of that film. Kind of plants you where you are. Yeah. Oh man, love the film.
Yeah, I think out of any film on this list, if any of them are going to kind of stay the test of time in some kind of canonical sense, in the way of with our sight and sound lists and stuff like that, I think the Zone of Interest might be the one to do that, just because it's so interesting in the way it kind of experiments with theme and form and all that kind of stuff. And I give it a lot of respect for that. But
I think you're completely right there, actually. I think it's probably one of the only, bar one or two films, I think it's one of the only films on the list that is completely resistant to time, I think. I think you're so right. I think in 20, 30 years, this will be a revered film still.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff, Alex. My number 3 film, getting on to the heavy hitters now, is Killers of the Flower Moon. And probably one of the first films, probably second or third film on this list that we've seen in order canonically. And it's been a lot of time. I think it was October we saw this. Still a film I think about a lot. There's a lot of expectation riding on this. It's Martin Scorsese doing his self-proclaimed, his epic. The way Tarantino said that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was his. Obviously, this is a completely different beast. Obviously, this was so enlightening from the point of view that this is a part of history that I think most of us had no clue about coming into the film. I think the book that it was adapted from was only released a few years ago. So it's all kind of freshly came into the public mindset, and it's just a fascinating story about sort of the foundation of American greed, which is like a story we've heard of before, but the manipulation of a race of people with their own sort of right to their land, and laced with these fascinating characters. DiCaprio plays a bit of a buffoon, slightly lovable to begin with, but descends into darkness, and it's really cool to see DiCaprio play a character stripped of vanity, really, in all literal sense. And I think it's one of his better performances. Robert De Niro, I've seen a lot of people kind of give him flack for going, oh, it's Robert De Niro. He is giving a Robert De Niro performance. I completely disagree.
Yeah,
I think
I'm with you on that. I've heard the same things. I'm like, no, he was one of the best things about this film.
I think about the score. I think about this sort of this guitar, this sinister guitar strumming that kind of, or picking, that goes throughout the film, especially any time that King, Robert De Niro's character, comes on screen, and how those two things are intertwined each other. Robert De Niro is probably his least showy he has ever been here, and I completely can believe why a group of people would have been manipulated by this man. I think he just completely comes across as the wolf in sheep's clothing, the friend to your face who will stab you in the back and probably won't even realize that he's doing it. His justification for his own actions throughout the film, whenever he gets arrested at the end of the film, like even the sheriffs are like, this is routine, sorry that we're arresting you, and he's like, oh, apparently I'm getting arrested here, I don't know what for. And like, I don't feel like this guy's putting on an act. I feel like this guy actually believes that he is superior to these other group of people. And it is so chilling to watch. And yeah, and Lily Gladstone, obviously, whilst not in the film as much as we thought she was going to be, she definitely does anchor the film for a good portion of it. And it's stunning. It's the meticulous detail that only Scorsese can bring to a Western epic. You feel like this town that they've manufactured out of the dust is... I feel like I know that town, the geography. I feel like I walk into any of those shops or stores and like all this, it would be completely correct. I feel like I can live in that space. But yeah, a 3+ hour film that justifies itself. And I think I will be watching continuously for years to come. I think it's great.
I agree, and that is why it is also my number 3 film. So we have agreed a little bit more than I thought we were going to.
Okay.
But yeah, you've said it. You've said it all. I'm so happy Martin Scorsese is still making films, and I'm so happy that he's making films as good as this. The man just knows cinema through and through. It is an absolute epic. It's why I think it came quite high on both our top 10 lists at the end of the year. Yeah, you've kind of said it all. I don't know what else there is to say. It is.
Well, we do disagree about one thing, I think.
Oh, go on.
Well, I think this has one of the best endings of last year, and one that kind of sucker punched me. And I thought it was really a class move of Scorsese to come on screen. I didn't see it as a vanity thing. I saw it as a real sort of nod and passing of the baton of respect to a group of people that he got to meet and interact with during this project. And I cemented how great this film was for me. I know you weren't as keen.
Yeah, I wasn't as keen. Like, I did feel the vanity a little bit. But the idea of kind of like the way the story is told and passed down through different mediums and generations, I think is interesting. I just love the way Scorsese's even gone about making this film and how involved the Osage people have been in kind of helping navigate how the script would be structured. An early draft of the film, or an early draft of the script, should I say, was a lot more kind of similar to the book, and didn't feature the Osage people as prominently, but more as kind of like a crime to be solved.
Yes.
And I like that it's not that. The film is not that. It is more of a look into how how these people have been kind of manipulated and tricked through racism, I guess.
And even behind the scenes, he got a lot of Osage tribe members, modern day members, to do a lot of the costume design for this film. Like, actually do a lot of the, a lot of these amazing robes that we see in this film are actually authentic and made by an American costume department as well. Obviously, some are, but like there's a real sense of him trying to, give back a little bit here.
Yeah. It's because he knows he's in a very privileged position in telling this story. I don't think, Apple would have given 300 million and kind of final cut to anyone else to tell the story in the way it is told here. So I think he knew he had to go about it in the right way.
Because he's a very smart man.
He really is. He really is.
Okay, so Alex, that was your number 3 as well.
That was my number 3. So yeah.
Okay, so number 2. I think this is going to be your number 1. Number 2 for me, and this was real, like a flip of the coin moment for me. Number 2 is Past Lives. Greta Lee's debut film. What a debut film. I mean, we said that last year was Charlotte Wells, and I think this is equally comparable in terms of, wow, I mean, if she makes a film like this again, I think we've got another auteur on our hands. This is a stunning film, not just visually, but this central relationship, three-way relationship between a young woman who moved when she was very young from South Korea over to New York with her parents for them to get a better life. She falls in love with an American man. They're engaged to get married, but she's maintaining this relationship abroad with the young boy that she left behind. And that relationship rekindles and brings things into question about, what would have happened if I stayed behind. And yeah, it's a very open wound of a film. We're seeing characters that are completely honest and navigating a situation in a really grown-up way, in a really open way. And watching that unfold is really brilliant and completely against stereotype and cliches that would be rife in a genre like this. And its book ended with a scene at the beginning and at the end that completely whacks you over the head in terms of just overwhelming emotion. I thought I saw a lot of my own relationship within this film. I think you felt similarly. I think a lot of people, that's why it's resonating a lot with people in general, is that there's something so relatable scene to scene in this film. And I think it's I own it now. I own it on Blu-ray, and I think you do as well. Yeah. and it's a film I would be enjoying for years to come. And it was so nearly my number one. I feel so bad. I wish I could tie number one, Alex. I wish I really could. It's a stunning film. A stunning film.
Yep, absolutely. Though, according to your top 10, it's no Dungeons and Dragons.
Like, I'll save it. You know what? Imagine if that won Best Picture. I would be cheering. I would be fists in the air. Sticking to my guns, that movie rips. I cried at Dungeons and Dragons both times I watched it.
Oh no. So you are right. Past Lives is going to make my number one, because my number two is Poor Things. As you know, I bloody love this film. I think it is, almost like the most adult fantasy kind of big budgeted film that we're going to see in a long time. And everybody in it is brilliant. I love the set design. I love the production design. I love the performances. Like you said, Mark Ruffalo is hilarious. I love how funny this film is. I love how it navigates a relatively simple story through kind of very weird ways, and really shows, kind of the worst of when the worst of humanity is kind of stripped from a person, the shame and what am I trying to say?
They're completely moldable. Yeah.
They're completely moldable. That's it. Yeah. And like, we've seen elements of this story before, but not in the same way. Like, it is obviously kind of riffing off kind of Frankenstein and films like that have gone before it. But I think it's so unique in the way that it explores this topic, and is less so a monster film, but like a film about humanity itself. The things that are great and the things that are bad. Seems to be a little bit of backlash, as always happens with the kind of Oscar stuff. Some people finding the baby's brain in an adult person a bit icky, but I think you're not supposed to think it is a good thing anyway. The concept is there as kind of like a jumping board for ideas and discussion, but I don't think it's ever like, oh, this was a good thing to do.
Yeah, I don't get that argument at all. And if you come to a Lanthimos film expecting not to be icked, then you're going to the wrong film.
Yeah. The film is definitely provocative throughout. Maybe occasionally a little too provocative at times, but I think it, for the most part, is kind of well rounded in its kind of intrigue. This, honestly, I think this is my favorite Yorgos Lanthimos film as well. I think he's really outdone himself here. Some of his kind of stylistic ways have fallen to the side a little bit. Some of that kind of deadpan,
a dialogue
and stuff. But I think I kind of respect him for kind of seeing that this film didn't need that, and it would be a disservice to kind of paint the film in that way.
It would have been another thing to think about. Yeah.
So it's a very colourful film. I very much, I really love Poor Things, and I am looking forward to it coming onto Disney Plus, because I really want to watch it again. I can't wait to go back into that world, and hopefully I still like it as much as I did. I'm sure I will.
Do you know what's really cool about it as well is because it is so provocative and off the wall, and perhaps if you're not used to this sort of film, you would think it was weird. But going to a multiplex cinema, I went to a preview screen and it was really, really busy. A lot of people there, and everybody was laughing through the whole thing. It was really cool to see that this sort of style that would have been kind of unattractive to a lot of people kind of broke the barrier, and a lot of general audiences seem to be really, really enjoying this film. So that's really cool. So it just tells you how good it is.
It is the adult Barbie.
It is the adult Barbie, and I think it's my Barbie, Alex.
Of course, as white men would want.
That's what white men would say.
Yeah,
that's what Mark Ruffalo.
Of course, this would be our Barbie.
Okay, the coveted number one spot, much lower on Alex's list, and we kind of alluded to before. My number one film of the Best Picture list is The Holdovers. And I was really surprised to actually even see it as a Best Picture nominee. I love this film. It's getting a bit of backlash too. I feel people are a lot of indifference towards the Paul Giamatti performance.
What?
Again, because there's the argument, Alex, that he is doing a shtick that they've seen him do for years. But like I argued with you, well, not argued with you, but like we said last time in our review of the Holdovers, he does it because he's so good at it. You know
Mm.
what? There's no problem with that. There's no problem at all. And he gives such a great grounded performance to this film, and all three of them do. Dominic Sessa and Divine Joy Randolph. The three of them bounce off each other so well, and all of them are given ample room to fulfill their stories in a satisfying and emotional way. And all while doing different things and operating on different levels and complementing each other all the same. And also, it's a holiday film that I can't remember the last time a holiday film got under my skin and it gave me that emotional catharsis like you were speaking about earlier on. Maybe not something since those old classic Christmas movies like It's a Wonderful Life or The Shop Around the Corner. Something that really, the sweetness wasn't too treacle, where I felt it's artifice. You know, we're not talking about Love Actually or anything here. This is something that kind of earns its emotional ending. And yeah, I loved it. I thought it was so funny. It's so rewatchable. I'm going to be watching this every Christmas until I get sick of it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think it surprises you in moments too. It's really cool to see Alexander Payne. He was kind of up against it a little bit. He had a bit of a frosty reception to his last film, Downsizing, which I still quite enjoyed. But it was really cool to see him probably make his best film to date. And I'm a big fan of Alexander Payne in general. So for me, it was a personal win. Performance is incredible. Love the setting. Love a good boarding school like base job. We haven't got one of those in a while, and yeah, it gives Dead Poets Society a run for its money. I love this thing. I love it. I can't. It's a joy to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you on. I think it's going to be a Christmas watch. I'm very excited to watch it at Christmas time as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, I'm getting ready. I'll get that Blu-ray ready for ready for December for sure. But yeah, my number one is, as you alluded to, and I kind of already gave away, Past Lives, which, as you know, is a film I absolutely adore. And for anybody who already knows me, I guess they would probably not understand why this film would be so high up on my list. It seems to hit that running theme of all my favorite films of kind of like tragic love stories that aren't really that tragic, but also aren't that romantic either. They're their own beasts. In fact, my favorite film is even referenced to in this film, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I watched it again recently. It is just really interesting in the way that the whole film is just designed to make you feel things emotionally. I forgot how kind of slow it is in a way from that first watch. It kind of very methodically approaches this in a way that kind of lulls you into this kind of dreamlike state, and I think it breaks down those barriers in a way. It's because it's got a really brilliant soundtrack as well, and
Yeah,
really
it
just
does.
kind of like gets gets you into the minds of its main characters and the way they feel.
And that aesthetic of the New York landscape, the obsession, this film, not obsession, but has a leaning towards appreciation of the architecture and how that can kind of border and frame this relationship or these relationships going on at the same time. We alluded to in our previous review, we were obsessed by how New York City looked in this film. It's stunning.
Yeah, in a way, it feels like it was like it's difficult because it's a city that has been filmed so many times, but it just feels different in this film. There's something about it. There's something about the height of it and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an incredible film. I still think that the new Ghostbusters movie coming out soon will probably give us a better
Yeah.
vision of New York City. I'm really looking forward to that, especially seeing that it's going to be icy as well. Yeah.
Mm.
Sorry to derail you there.
We hope that is sarcasm.
It is. Past lives, you're not going to get any argument from me here. I completely agree with you. Like I said, it's completely interchangeable with the Holdovers. My number one. Ah, man, this is a pretty good. It is a good Best Picture list. I mean, bar two of them, I won't be angry if any of them win.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I agree. I'm really surprised Past Lives is on here as well.
Like I said, if another film came in its place, in the Best Picture nominee, Maestro would not be going. It would be Past Lives, I think, unfortunately. But I'm so glad that Past Lives is on this list. Again, it's breaking that sort of like barrier that we're used to, the Academy going for films that aren't like this. So hopefully we get more of that as the years go along, and eventually we'll have a Looney Tunes film and Best Picture nominee or something like that.
Yeah. Well, no, they keep canceling those for tax write-offs. So I don't think we're going to be getting a Looney Tunes film anytime soon.
Good old Warner Brothers.
Yeah. I mean, could any of these films do a surprise win? I mean, we're all assuming Oppenheimer is going to be up there, but the way they vote for the Best Pictures is they rank them almost like we do, don't they? And then the scores are kind of tallied up. It's not a you vote for one film and that's it. You're voting for all of them. It's just like how you're voting for them that counts. Like, so sometimes that means you get a surprise winner, like Coda, because, a majority of people really enjoyed that film. So it hits somewhere in like the upper middles of your ranking lists. I think the one that people say could be the sneaky win is Zone of Interest, rather than any of the others. But like, part of me feels like I don't think I've spoken to anybody who really dislikes Past Lives. I don't know. Maybe I'm grasping for things here, but that's the one I'd love to see win.
It's hard. Any of them can hide it because recency bias comes into play as well. So like whenever, and these films were quite staggered on their releases. None of these kind of came out at the same time, apart from obviously Barbie and Oppenheimer. But whenever each of these films came out, all of them had an argument. Oh, that's Best Picture winner for sure. So it kind of has a little bit of play in that. Obviously, we take account the recent SAG Awards or Golden Globes, and that kind of dictates. Well, doesn't always dictate, but it's a good measure of what's popular. And Oppenheimer is looking pretty popular at the minute. So again, I would like it. I wouldn't be angry at it winning, but it's nice to see like because this is a way for the world that doesn't watch cinema. A lot of the world engages with the Oscars. Might be the only time of the year they engage with an award ceremony to do with films. So to me, sometimes I find it a little bit worrying when we're trying to, a movie like Oppenheimer or Barbie wins all the Oscars. And it's just solidifying to general audiences that this is the only film that mattered last year, is the one that you already heard about and knew about. So it would be really nice for a film that, I think is probably a little bit better, only slightly, but to win in its place and maybe make people go out their way and watch something different.
Yeah.
But we're never going to get that. We're never going to get that. So forget about it now.
It is nice to see a lot of these films kind of make their way back to the cinema, though, which is one of the good things that the Oscars does. Like I've seen Past Lives is doing another short run at the Watershed because obviously it's in the running. Obviously, Poor Things is going off to streaming, so probably less so. But I've seen Oppenheimer and Barbie make their way back. I've seen Killers of the Flower Moon make its way back. So good to see him. Good to see him making little mini runs and stuff like that. And whoever wins always gets a bit of traction afterwards as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's never a good thing to win Best Picture, though, right?
I was
like it always. People instantly want to get their knives out as soon as like something wins Best Picture, and it always like go for the years. It just gets weaker and weaker. Its position as a good film, because people always like to criticize a Best Picture. So you're always better like being a nominee, but maybe not winning. Maybe winning for screenplay or something like that is a good award. But yeah, unless you're like Return of the King or something, you sweep everything. Everybody loves that.
I don't know. It's kind of why the Oscars doesn't really matter that much, because I even struggled to remember who won last year. I was thinking this the other day. I was like, who won last year's Oscar again? But I do think like Everything Everywhere All at Once probably does have staying power that maybe Coda doesn't, from previous years.
Yeah, Coda had the benefit of being a very uplifting moment in a very dark part of recent human history. It came right smack bang in the center of the pandemic, and it was just like, oh my goodness, this is a tonic. I just need something very sweet that's very enjoyable to watch, and it did succeed in that part. But yeah, you're right. I don't know if it has like it's going to be BFI top 100 sight and sound in the next decade. Definitely not.
No, fair enough.
That's the show, Alex. No more Oscar talk. We're not going to like bore people by going into every single category. We just wanted to get the big ones out the way. But yeah, we're really looking forward to, and we're probably going to cover the Oscars after they happen and kind of share our thoughts on what happens, and probably something outrageous and weird will happen as it always does.
Yeah, hopefully no one gets slapped. But I guess we're 2 years on from that, so who really cares? Yeah, we'll post some stuff on social media. We like to put our little predictions out there and stuff like that. I think it's happening this weekend, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, that came out of nowhere.
This weekend or next? I don't know. One of the two. But it's happening. It's happening soon.
It's happening. That's a threat.
So yeah, we are going to be taking a break next week, though. We have a little break, but that is mainly because my fault for not seeing June 2 as soon as it comes out. So I'm traveling all the way back to Plymouth to go watch it in the IMAX with Kris for a second go round. I still haven't seen it, so he's just blood vessels are bursting. Try not to spoil it for me.
Lip sealed. we must not hype. I must not hype. Hype is the mind killer.
I know you love it. We all know you love it, Kris. So yeah, no episode next week, but the week after we'll come back with Dune 2. And
well done. Everybody in England says June.
Yeah.
Oh, is it summer?
It's supposed to be Dune, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fine. I say stuff weird all the time. It's no problem.
Yeah, you do. But yeah, so I maybe a little late on the Dune 2 review, but maybe a lot of people have seen it, so we'll be wanting to kind of go into a more spoiler-filled discussion, which we always offer here at the Film Angle. But, with a week off, that means you have some time to kill, and maybe you want to go listen to that Cineboys to Cinemen episode that we did with them last week. So make that the filler episode in between ours, but make sure to come back.
I will obviously put a link to their episode in our bio. Yeah.
Yes, we will.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for today's Oscar special. Hopefully it was as successful or insightful or just plain stupid as the last one was. But that's it for this week's episode of the Film Angle, guys. And we look forward to talking to you again whenever we come back after our week off. You can catch us on Instagram, as Alex already alluded to. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys get your podcasts from. But today, let's be honest, it's the Film Angle. See you later.
Bye and good night.
Bye, Alex.
Bye-bye.